Look, before that night, I was just a data analyst grinding it out in Midtown Manhattan. That name's Jay Mitchell. 25. Born and raised in Brooklyn, I'm about as American as a slice of dollar pizza. 3 months earlier, I'd jumped from a dying startup to Eterna Group, one of the top 30 real estate firms in the country. Black glass tower in Times Square, 8 floors of we're changing the world bullshit. And my actual job? Bottom dash feeder. My direct boss, Dave Morrison, was a 40-something bald guy whose gut was bigger than his career. His superpower was taking my Excel models, changing the font, and presenting them at VP meetings like he'd built them from scratch. In 3 months, I'd built 4 financial models and 3 marketing decks. Dave's name ended up on every single cover slide. And then there was the CEO, Victoria Sterling. Nobody called her that to her face, though. In the office, she was VS. Or, behind her back, the Ice Queen. In 3 months, I'd exchanged maybe 5 words with her. First time, new hire orientation. She walked past me in the hallway. I said, "Good morning, Ms. Sterling." She nodded without looking up from her phone. Second time, elevator. We were alone for about 10 seconds. I mustered a great quarter results. She said thanks and went back to staring at the floor indicator like it held the nuclear codes. Third time was that Friday night, August 12th. Never forgetting that date. I was working late, past midnight, not because I had real work, but because Dave had dumped a pile of crusty CSV files on my desk at 4:55 and said, "Jay, my boy, can you clean this up for Monday's meeting? Should take you an hour." Spoiler, it took 3 hours. And when I was done, I realized the data was completely useless. It was garbage from a dead project he'd done the year before. He'd forgotten he even had it. I slacked him the file anyway, shut down my laptop, and headed for the B3 parking garage. The elevator doors opened and I got hit with a wall of wine. Not beer. Not cheap wine. This was the good stuff, the kind of Napa Valley Cabernet that costs a few $100 a bottle. I recognized it from my old company's Christmas party, where I'd spent 2 hours hugging the office toilet. The smell was coming from the far corner. A woman was curled up against a concrete pillar. Black theory skirt suit, bunched up and wrinkled. Blonde hair spread on the floor like she'd been poured out of a bottle. A Chanel 2.55 bag lay 3 feet away, next to a pair of Jimmy Choo heels. She was on her side, one arm tucked under her, the other twitching faintly. My first instinct was to walk away. A drunk woman in a Manhattan parking garage at 1 a.m.? That's how Law & Order episodes start. Then she rolled onto her back, and the fluorescent light hit her face. I froze. Victoria Sterling, our CEO. The woman on the cover of Crane's New York Business. Forbes' Most Powerful Women list. Net worth somewhere north of $1 billion. The woman who'd reportedly made Wall Street old men cry in board meetings. And she was lying on the filthy B3 concrete with a glistening smear of what looked like red wine and saliva running from the corner of her mouth. "Ms. Sterling." I crouched down and said it quietly, "Nothing. Ms. Sterling." Louder this time, her eyes snapped open. Those eyes, the ones that could laser through a VP's soul in a quarterly review, were now bloodshot, unfocused, swimming in alcohol. She stared at me for a solid 5 seconds. Her lips moved. She stopped, like the rest of the sentence had gotten lost somewhere between her brain and her mouth. Then she grabbed my tie. Her grip was shockingly strong. "What department?" "Data analytics. Jay Mitchell." "Jay," she frowned, trying to remember something that clearly wasn't coming. She let go of my tie and switched to my sleeve. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Take me home. I'll double your salary." I almost laughed. On a $72,000 base. Double was $144,000. Honestly? Tempting. But the problem was, she wasn't going to remember my face tomorrow morning, and I'd be explaining to HR why I'd been alone with the unconscious CEO in a parking garage. The thought lasted about 2 seconds. Because Victoria suddenly let go of my sleeve, slumped sideways, and let out this tiny, broken sound, half sigh, half sob. "Never mind, everyone leaves anyway." The echo bounced off the concrete walls. It was tired. It was sad. It was the kind of sound you never expect to hear from someone who runs a billion-dollar company. I stood there for 3 seconds. Then I sighed, bent down, and pulled her up. She was dead weight drunk, like trying to carry a wet sandbag. One arm around her waist, I scooped up her Chanel bag and her heels, and stumbled toward my CAMY 2017 Honda Civic. The passenger seat still had a Shake Shack bag and some loose fries from last week. I shoved her into the passenger seat, threw the garbage in the back, and clicked her seatbelt. She stayed quiet the whole time, eyes closed, long eyelashes twitching like she was already dreaming. I started the engine. "Ms. Sterling, where do you live?" No answer. "Ms. Sterling." Her eyes popped open again. She stared straight ahead through the windshield, and in that special drunk person voice where words come out like pieces of a broken phone, she said, "740 Park Avenue. No, not 740. That's my ex's building. Wait, shit, where do I live? 740 Park Avenue." I knew the address. One of the most expensive pre-war buildings on the Upper East Side. The penthouse had a full view of Central Park. Billionaire Row. The problem was, she didn't know which floor. "All right," I said, pulling out of the garage. "We'll figure it out." I turned onto 6th Avenue and headed north. The Manhattan skyline glittered in the rearview, Empire State Building's top light blinking like a lonely star. Victoria spoke again. "You want to know what happened today?" Her voice was eerily calm, like she was reading a grocery list. "The board grilled me for 4 hours. 4 fucking hours." My hands tightened on the wheel. This was dangerous territory, a junior employee listening to the CEO complain about the board. That's like watching a horror movie with all the lights off, but drunk people don't care about boundaries. "They said I'm too aggressive," she said, dropping into a low, oily imitation of some old guy's voice. "Victoria, you need to be more collaborative. This isn't a dictatorship." She laughed, a short, ugly laugh. "You know what this company looked like when I took over 5 years ago?" She didn't wait for an answer. Debt ratio 80%. 2 major projects in default. Banks wouldn't even return my calls. My dad, her voice cracked. My dad had his stroke right there in the boardroom. In that building. She pointed out the window like the tower was standing on the sidewalk. 26, she said. 26 years old. The old boys gave me 6 months. She was quiet for a second, staring at nothing. Then 5 years later. She held up one hand, fingers spread. Debt down to 30%. 3 landmark projects. Market cap tripled. And what did those assholes say yesterday? She turned to look at me. Her eyes were wet. They said I'm emotionally unstable. She jabbed a finger at the dashboard. Concerned about leadership continuity. They want to put their own people on the board. They want to gut everything I built. Her voice cracked on the last word. Then she went quiet again. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the Civic's engine and the distant wail of a siren somewhere in Midtown. "You know what the worst part is," she said, much softer now. I shook my head. "Dave, your boss, is one of theirs. He's been having lunch with related companies for months. He's feeding them information. And I can't fire him yet because I don't have the votes. The board would block it." She laughed, a hollow, tired sound. "So I have to sit there every week and watch him steal credit from people like you, and I can't do a damn thing about it." I didn't say anything. "I hate this," she whispered. "I hate all of it." And then, right on cue, she cranked the window down and threw up on 5th Avenue. I slowed down, pulled over near 57th Street, and let her finish. Handed her the travel pack of tissues. Her hands were shaking. "Sorry about your car," she mumbled, wiping her mouth. "It's a Civic," I said. "It's been through worse." She laughed. It was a small, surprised sound. Almost pretty in the glow of the dashboard. "You're funny, Jay." "I try." She slumped back in the seat, hair everywhere, mascara starting to run. She stared out the window for a few seconds. Then, "I read your Hudson Yards model, by the way." I blinked. "You did?" "Yeah." She turned her head to look at me. Her eyes were still drunk, but there was something sharp underneath. Dave presented it as his own. Couldn't even explain the sensitivity table. I asked him one question, just one, and he turned beet red. She slapped my shoulder, harder than she probably meant to. "You're good, Jay. Don't let that fat fucker tell you otherwise." Something in my chest went click. I didn't know what to say, so I just put the car in drive and merged back onto the FDR. The rest of the drive was weird. She didn't do long speeches anymore. She just said random things, like a skipping record. "My apartment has a $50,000 espresso machine," she said at one point, completely out of nowhere. "I don't drink espresso." Then, "The doorman's name is Raoul. He's the only person who's remembered my birthday in 3 years." Then, quieter, "I turned 32 last week." I glanced at her. She was staring at her own hands. "Nobody at work knew," she said. "I didn't tell anyone. What's the point, right? You say it's my birthday and everyone pretends to care for 5 seconds and then goes back to asking for budget approvals." She paused. "I ordered a pizza. By myself. Ate it on that couch." She gestured vaguely toward the Upper East Side. "The couch still has the plastic wrap on it. I never took it off. I don't know why." I didn't say anything. Sometimes you don't say anything. She put her head against the window and closed her eyes. "My dad used to call me Vic," she mumbled. "He died 5 years ago. 3 weeks after the stroke. Never saw what I did with the company." A long silence. "He would have been proud, I think." Her voice was barely audible. "I hope so." Then she passed out. Just like that. 1 second she was talking, the next second her head lolled to the side and her breathing went slow and even. Her drove the rest of the way in silence. The doorman at 740 Park, Raoul, apparently, saw me pulling up with Victoria Sterling barefoot and mascara smeared in my Civic. His face was a masterpiece of professional restraint. He didn't ask a single question. Just held the door and handed me a blanket. "Penthouse," he said. "Fingerprint lock." The elevator went straight up. Her door had a biometric lock. It took 3 tries with her limp finger before it opened. The lights came on automatically, some kind of smart home thing. And there it was, the famous view. Floor-to-ceiling windows, Central Park spread out like a black velvet blanket under the city lights. The living room was the size of my entire apartment. But the place was a ghost town, kitchen counters, spotless. Not a single dirty dish. The Miele cooktop looked like it had never been turned on. I opened the fridge, Fiji water, a jar of pickles, unopened, and a carton of organic milk with an expiration date from 2 months ago. The couch in the living room still had the grey plastic shipping wrap on it. The Samsung remote was still in its sealed plastic bag. I carried her to the couch, the wrapped one, then thought better of it and found a guest bedroom upstairs. The bed was made, but the sheets were so stiff they felt like hotel linen that had never been slept in. I put her down, pulled off her heels, and draped a blanket over her. The blanket still had the folding creases from the package. I went downstairs to get her some water. I always carry a travel pack of Advil in my bag. Dave's deadlines give me migraines. So I grabbed 2, plus a glass of water from the kitchen. Her medicine cabinet was empty, I checked, and left them on the nightstand. Then I just stood there for a minute, looking at her. Victoria Sterling, CEO of a billion-dollar company, passed out in a guest bed in her own penthouse because her master bedroom probably still had the plastic wrap on the mattress. Her mouth was slightly open. One hand was curled under her cheek like a little kid. I thought about leaving a note. I even wrote one, "Vic, happy unofficial birthday. You're doing okay, Jay." Then I looked at it and felt like a complete idiot. Crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. I let myself out. The doorman, Raoul, nodded at me like this was a totally normal thing that happened every night. I got home at 4 a.m. and fell into bed. The next day, Saturday, I didn't hear anything. I spent the whole day convincing myself I was going to get fired by Sunday morning. I'd cycle through every possible outcome. Best case, she doesn't remember anything and I keep my job. Worst case, HR calls me in on Monday and I get walked out of the building for unprofessional conduct involving a senior executive. I even practiced a speech in the shower. "Ms. Sterling, I was just trying to help. I swear, I didn't touch anything. Your doorman can vouch for me." It didn't sound convincing even to me. Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before answering. Then I remembered the emergency contact form I'd filled out during onboarding. She must have pulled it from HR. Hello. Jay. It's Victoria. Her voice was completely different from Friday night. Clear. Sharp. All business. I sat up straight. Ms. Sterling. Hi. 2 seconds of silence. I looked at your file this morning, she said. Your performance reviews are not accurate. Dave's been suppressing your metrics. I didn't say anything. I also found the original Hudson Yards sensitivity model you built. A pause. It's significantly better than what Dave presented. Another pause. Come to my office tomorrow. 8:30 a.m. 42nd floor. Click. She hung up before I could answer. I sat there on my bed, staring at the phone. No thank you. No about Friday night. Nothing. Just a summons. I spent the rest of Sunday trying not to think about it. I failed. Monday morning. 8:20 a.m. I was standing on the 42nd floor in my one decent suit supply suit, trying to remember how to breathe. Rebecca, the executive assistant, looked at me like she'd never seen me before. Which, to be fair, she hadn't. Ms. Sterling is in a meeting, she said. She'll be with you at 8:30. I nodded and sat down on a leather chair that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Exactly 8:30. The cherrywood door opened. Victoria was behind the desk. White Ralph Lauren blouse. Hair in a sleek ponytail. Makeup flawless. She looked like she'd just stepped out of a magazine, not a trace of the woman who'd thrown up on Fifth Avenue. Sit, she said. Saturday. She pushed a folder across the desk. Open it. I opened it. J. Mitchell, promotion to Associate Director of Strategic Analytics, reporting directly to the office of the CEO. My mouth went dry. You're moving to the Strategic Projects team, she said, her voice flat and professional. Hudson Yards Comps project is yours. You pick your own analysts. She paused. Dave Morrison is being reassigned to a non-managerial role in compliance, pending an investigation. I blinked. Pending an investigation. I still don't have the votes to fire him outright, she said. Her jaw tightened, just for a fraction of a second. But I can move him somewhere he can't do any more damage. The investigation will take a few months. By then, the board composition might change. She said it like she was already planning the next move. I looked down at the folder, then back at her. Ms. Sterling, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet, she said. I made this decision based on your work product, not because of what happened Friday night. She held my gaze for a beat longer than necessary. Although, she said, and her voice dropped just slightly, so slightly that Rebecca probably couldn't have heard it from her desk, the Friday night part didn't hurt. She looked back down at her papers. But I saw it. The corner of her mouth twitched, then it was gone. And Jay, she said, not looking up. The water and Advil. Thanks. I had the worst hangover of my life, and you probably saved me from vomiting on my own rug. Just doing my civic duty, I said. Then I realized how that sounded. Civic. Because I drive a Civic. She looked up at me for one long second, the Ice Queen's mask cracked. Her lips pressed together like she was fighting something, a laugh, maybe. Or a smile. Get out of my office, she said. But there was no venom in it. You start Wednesday. HR will send the paperwork. I stood up, folder in hand. I got to the door and turned around. One more thing, I said. She raised an eyebrow. Your fridge is empty. You should order groceries. She stared at me. Then, I swear to God, she laughed. Not the hollow laugh from the car. A real one. Short and surprised. Noted, she said. I went back down to the 3rd floor to clear out my desk. The office was quiet, too quiet. People were pretending to work but watching me out of the corners of their eyes. Dave Morrison was standing by the coffee machine. He saw me walking toward my cubicle with the folder. His face went from confused to pale to red in about 2 seconds. He didn't say anything. Just turned around and walked the other way. And my cubicle neighbor, Mike, leaned over the second I sat down. Dude, he whispered. What did you do? Did you sell your soul? Did you find her cat? Does she even have a cat? I just gave her a ride home, I said. Mike stared at me. Blinked. You gave Victoria Sterling a ride home. In your Civic. And now you're getting promoted. Pretty much. What the actual fuck, Jay? I laughed and slapped him on the shoulder and my phone buzzed. My assistant is ordering groceries. Any recommendations? I grinned and typed back, milk. UN expired this time. 3 seconds later, shut up. Then, Wednesday. 8:30 a.m. Don't be late. I pocketed my phone, picked up my box of desk junk, and walked out of the open plan office for the last time. Behind me, Dave's red face, Mike's jealous stare, and the low hum of whispers spreading across the floor. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The air conditioning blew that stale, recycled office air. 3 months I'd hated this place. 3 months of feeling invisible. But right now, walking down that hallway, every step felt like fireworks. Oh yeah, every once in a while, good things happen to people who do the right thing. You just have to be willing to let a drunk billionaire throw up in your car first.